On March 3, 1867, a formal complaint was filed in Vicksburg. It named Judge William H. McCraw of Yazoo County. It accused him of authorizing the unlawful seizure of wages from a freedman named Daniel Carter. The complaint was written by Captain Edward C. Brown, Sub-Assistant Commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau for the District of the Yazoo. It was entered into district correspondence as Case Number 47, Civil Process Review. The opening line was precise, quote, "Sir, I have the honor to report irregular proceedings in the probate court of Yazoo County affecting the earnings of one Daniel Carter, freedman." The amount was recorded exactly, $43.60. The date of seizure, December 21, 1866. The court order authorizing garnishment, November 12, 1866. The order cited a debt. The debt cited an affidavit. The affidavit bore the name Thomas P. Rayner, planter of Yazoo County. By the time the Bureau intervened, the money had already been collected by the sheriff and delivered to Rayner. Carter's employer in Vicksburg confirmed the deduction in his payroll ledger. The entry read, quote, "Less $43.60 by order probate court Yazoo Co." The ink was darker than the surrounding entries, added after calculation of weekly totals. Judge McCraw's signature appeared at the bottom of the writ. His seal was pressed into the margin. The Bureau did not initially dispute the possibility of debt. It questioned the procedure. No summons had been issued to Carter. No hearing date appeared in the minute book for November or December. No acknowledgement of service bore his signature or mark. Yet the money was gone. Captain Brown's complaint did not use accusation as its first language. It used sequence. It listed dates. It listed statutory requirements. It cited the absence of notice. And it ended with a recommendation that Judge McCraw be suspended from jurisdiction over civil matters involving freedmen, pending review by the Assistant Commissioner for the state of Mississippi. By June 2, 1867, the Vicksburg Herald carried a brief notice referencing federal scrutiny of Yazoo probate practices. McCraw was named in full. The wage order would eventually be voided, but the docket book held more than one such entry. Daniel Carter was the first to complain. He was not the only one.
In 1866, Yazoo County's probate court resumed routine civil authority. Estate settlements, guardianships, and debt claims filled the docket. Garnishments were common instruments. Judge William H. McCraw had held his seat since 1859. His handwriting was steady. His orders followed formula. Upon sworn affidavit presented, appeared at the start of most provisional writs. Thomas P. Rayner owned 640 acres near Benton. Before 1865, enslaved labor sustained his cotton production. After emancipation, he entered written wage contracts with freed workers. Those contracts were brief, 1 page, 2 witnesses, a monthly sum, and rations specified. Daniel Carter signed such a contract on January 3, 1866. The document promised $10 per month, meat and meal weekly, and settlement after harvest. Carter signed in his own hand. The letters were uneven but legible. Through spring and summer, Carter worked in Rayner's fields. Crop lien records show fertilizer purchased in March and seed in April. Carter's name appears beside two other laborers in Rayner's internal tally sheet. In October 1866, Rayner appeared before Judge McCraw with a written affidavit. It claimed Carter owed $60 in advances for supplies and had abandoned the premises without settlement. The affidavit requested immediate garnishment of any wages due under subsequent employment. Under Mississippi statute, such affidavits permitted provisional writs, but required service of notice and scheduling of hearing within 30 days. The minute book for November 12th records issuance of garnishment. It lists Yazoo v. Carter, debt. It does not record notice served. The sheriff's return ledger contains no entry for Carter. At the time, the order moved quietly through the system. The clerk copied it. The sheriff carried it. The employer complied. Carter had already left Yazoo County for Vicksburg in late November. He secured work unloading freight along the riverfront. His wages were weekly, paid in coin and recorded line by line. He did not know a writ followed him, but the payroll ledger in Vicksburg would become the second record, the one that did not align with the first. And that discrepancy would force the Bureau to look closer.
On December 3, 1866, Daniel Carter began employment with a Vicksburg merchant named Elias Morton. The ledger is narrow, columns ruled in red. Carter's wages are entered each Friday, $2.50, $3, $2.75. Morton's business dealt in dry goods and river freight. Laborers were paid at week's end in coin. Each payment required signature or mark. Carter signed his name in full on each line. On December 21, the entry changes. Gross wages, $5. Deduction, $43.60. Probate garnishment. Net paid, $0.00. The employer later testified that the sheriff presented a written writ bearing Judge McCraw's seal and signature. The writ commanded immediate deduction of wages, present and forthcoming, until satisfaction of debt. Carter learned of the seizure only when his pay envelope was empty. He requested explanation. Morton showed him the writ. It bore language stating he had been duly notified. Carter denied receiving any summons. On January 5, 1867, he traveled to the Bureau office in Vicksburg. His complaint was entered in a bound register titled Freedmen, Civil Grievances. The clerk summarized, "States wages seized without hearing." Captain Brown requested certified copies of the probate entry. He received 3 documents: Rayner's affidavit, McCraw's garnishment order, and the minute book excerpt. He compared dates carefully. The affidavit claimed abandonment in September, yet Rayner's crop record listed Carter working through October 15. The alleged debt of $60 did not match the garnished sum of $43.60. No accounting of calculation was attached. Most critically, the statute required a hearing within 30 days of provisional garnishment. No hearing appeared on the docket for December or January. When Brown inspected the docket further, he found 2 additional freedmen listed under similar affidavits filed by Rayner in the same week of November 1866. The language was nearly identical. The debt amounts varied slightly. The signatures were the same. One affidavit lacked a witness signature altogether. Brown copied the entries by hand into his field notebook. He marked each with page numbers. He underlined the absence of service notation. By February 1867, he had identified repetition, and Judge McCraw's name appeared on each order authorizing seizure.
On March 3, 1867, Captain Brown issued his formal complaint against Judge McCraw. The document ran 4 pages. It cited failure to provide due notice, absence of recorded service, and improper reliance upon unsupported affidavits in cases involving freed laborers. Captain Brown attached copies of 3 writs. He appended payroll excerpts demonstrating actual deduction. He included Carter's signed statement affirming lack of summons. The complaint was transmitted to the Assistant Commissioner for Mississippi with a cover letter requesting temporary suspension of said judge from jurisdiction in Freedmen's civil causes pending examination. On April 18, 1867, a directive was issued from Jackson. It ordered that Judge McCraw refrain from adjudicating civil claims wherein freed persons are defendants until inquiry be concluded. The order was delivered by military courier to Yazoo County. A receipt of delivery was signed by the county clerk. The sheriff was instructed separately to halt enforcement of outstanding garnishments lacking proof of service. 2 writs were returned unexecuted. On May 9, 1867, Carter's garnishment was declared void. The merchant was ordered to restore the deducted sum from funds not yet remitted. A receipt dated May 14th confirms Carter received $43.60 in full. His signature appears beside the notation, restored by Bureau order. The Vicksburg Herald, June 2nd edition, referenced the suspension, noting federal inquiry into irregular probate proceedings in Yazoo County. McCraw's name was printed without abbreviation. By July, Rayner's remaining claims were dismissed for insufficient evidence. The Bureau's file contained correspondence, receipts, copied affidavits, and margin notes marking statutory deficiencies. The pattern had been documented. The jurisdiction had been limited. The funds had been returned. By late 1867, the case stood on record in both county and federal files. Judge William H. McCraw remained restricted from hearing freedmen's civil matters through December 1868. His docket entries during that period exclude such cases. The limitation is noted in county minutes as per federal directive. In November 1869 election records, his name does not appear among judicial candidates. A brief notation in proceedings states he declined renomination. No further judicial commission is recorded under his name. Thomas P. Rayner's dismissed claims were entered as withdrawn. After July 1867, no additional affidavits appear bearing his signature seeking wage garnishment against freed laborers. Daniel Carter continued working in Vicksburg. The 1870 federal census lists him, age 32, laborer, residing with wife Eliza and 2 children. Personal estate valued at $150. In 1872, Deed Book C, page 214, records Carter purchasing 2 acres outside the city limits. Consideration, $125. The signature matches that on the Bureau receipt of May 14, 1867. The wage seizure did not recur. The Bureau file closed January 3, 1868, with a single notation: funds restored, jurisdiction corrected. McCraw completed his term but did not regain authority over Freedmen's civil disputes. Rayner's name recedes from probate litigation after 1867. Carter appears again in the 1880 census, same county, same household, occupation listed as farmer. The affidavit that removed his wages remains preserved in probate archives. It bears the judge's seal. Beside it, inserted later, is another paper, stamped in different ink. Void by order. The court recorded the seizure. The Bureau recorded the correction. And Daniel Carter's earnings were entered back into his ledger in his own hand.